Hi everyone, you are watching Procurement and Supply Chain Live, and this next session is going to be a real treat featuring Larry Phelan. He's the Chief Supply Chain Services Officer at EY. Larry joined EY Global Services as a partner in June 1999. He's an experienced transaction advisor, professional services consultant, and currently the Chief Supply Chain Officer. Larry is a member of EY's global practice group made up of approximately 125 of the most senior and influential EY leaders, and he serves on the board of a number of EY legal entities. Larry is an authentic, inclusive, and inspirational business leader focused on innovation and transformation. He's also a keen supporter of diverse and inclusive teams and suppliers, and has been presented with several awards for his work in this area. In fact, Larry's been a World Procurement Leader Award finalist in 2016 and 2017, and fingers crossed, he is a top contender for the upcoming 2022 award as well. So, a real star of procurement joining us today. Welcome, Larry, to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the glowing introduction.
You're very welcome, Larry. I'm sure you get it everywhere you go.
No, not as much as yours.
Okay, well, look, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, and I know you're going to share some insights with us, and then I'll come back later on and we'll have some questions and answers from you.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Good day, everybody. Hope everybody's well. The only one thing that I would add to Scott's introduction from the supply chain services role at EY is just to define it for everybody so that my comments today resonate from a scope: real estate, travel, meetings and events, technology sourcing, talent procurement, BMC procurement, workplace services procurement, accounts payable, requisition and purchase order function, and supplier management, or we call it supplier ecosystem services. That's the scope of what I'll be talking about today. So off we go. The question is how to get the board to see your function as strategic, not just transactional. Reality to that question, I think, is across all of our minds. And when I say strategic versus not transactional, many of us fall into the category of run that deal for us, save that money, avoid that cost, work with that supplier to get a rebate, work with that supplier to make sure we get credits, etc. That's transactional. And we all do that. We all do that well, and we strive to do it better. The question is, how do you do that, but also not sacrifice the more strategic value that you can bring to the organization? So, as Scott referenced when he introduced me, I joined EY in 99, spent about half my time in client service and then half my time in procurement / supply chain services role that I'm in now. And it struck me a few years in that functionally, we weren't seen as an organization that was strategic. We were seen as transactional. So I spoke to a number of people, some retired board members from a number of different companies through a network that I have, and also our current chairman at the time and then subsequent chairman, and just to pick their brain on why procurement at a company like EY and other companies that they worked with had this transactional moniker versus strategic moniker. And I got a number of very important points raised to me about that, some of which specific to EY, but generally as well. And I took that and I really had that resonate. You have people working really hard within this procurement or supply chain services function and all doing the right thing, but still we're all competing against finance, HR, markets, business development, sales, legal, risk, and in our world at EY, independence, and other functions that I'm forgetting about. So we're all competing against those functions for a seat at the table. Now, I'm not talking about having a seat at the board table. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that I should be sitting on the board of EY. I'm saying that I want the procurement supply chain services organization to be recognized at the board level and then being with the board on some regular basis to share insights, to share perspectives, etc. So what my journey has been, and what the journey within the supply chain services organization and that of EY has been, is to elevate the supply chain services organization to the board level. So today, just to hit on a few things, and that hopefully will helpful to you. I know as I speak to many of my peers, it resonates, and I think this is a calling, is to elevate the procurement supply chain services function, and this is hopefully my way of doing that, and being somebody who espouses why it's that important. I think number one, socialize. I think it's safe to say that many of the leaders in organizations don't quite understand your purpose, don't quite understand your mission, your goals, how you measure yourself or how you want to be measured, and the value return that the function, your procurement or supply chain service or supplier management function, whatever it might be, to be measured, and what it will provide. So when you peel back on those, I'm big into the purpose. I think the purpose is really important. So you talk to the executives, you talk to folks, senior leaders, and they don't understand your mission, your goals. How are you going to articulate that? What are you going to do to make sure that they are constantly hearing the socializing about your purpose, your mission, your goals, your measurements? I think there's measurements on a quantitative basis. There's measurements on a qualitative basis. We call that brand value. I'll come back to that later. So the socializing is really important to bring transparency, to bring clarity, to bring third-party benchmarks into how you look at things when you bring forward measurement. Your costs are what your costs are for your function. The value you deliver is the value you deliver, but what's your value return, and how are you benchmarking that? So that socialization has been really top of mind over the last number of years with the supply chain services team, the procurement team, and bringing that forward to our executives, our senior leaders, and our stakeholders. I think the next topic would be around being ready, being prepared to be relentless. There is no doubt that we all have access to significant amounts of data in the functions that we support. I think that data, along with trends in the data, trends in the function that you're looking to work with, the innovation that the function you're working with or trying to work with, and then bringing suppliers in, a combination of all that and being relentless in doing that. So the data, many times the function does not quite understand the data that's out there, whether it be their spend patterns, whether it be their quarterly spend patterns, those types of things. They don't quite see that. They might see what their budgets are, they might see what their actuals are, but when do they spend their money? Why do they spend their money? That is something they may not have access to through your ability to bring the data forward. The trends in the function, I think it's important that we are aligned with people that understand the specific function and where the trends in the market are going, where the trends in that function are going, and then bringing those trends forward. Now that gets anxious, for folks, because wait a second, I'm talking to somebody within our human resource or talent function or within our finance function. Aren't they the experts? What am I really bringing forward? So I think the reality is that it is a touchy subject, but I think it's important that you are connected to the market and to trends in the industry to bring that forward. And innovation is critical. Innovation that you see on your own for that function, or innovation, and I said before, bringing suppliers with you to talk to the function leaders that you're trying to work with. Suppliers know best, right? Suppliers are involved with everything. And how do you bring that forward to the stakeholder you're trying to work with? Use those suppliers to the best of your ability to drive innovation. Driving a mindset of change in the business is the next topic. And I think what's important there is, what change are you trying to accomplish? Do you want to be known as the trusted business advisor? Do you want to be known as the glue that holds things together, the team that has the data, the team that has constantly reinvented itself? What do you want to be known for, and what change are you trying to drive, and articulating that to the business as well? You want to be known for something, and I think that's, again, back to purpose, but it's driving a mindset of change in the business, how they perceive you. Really important, I think, to be focused on driving that change. However, all of those three things that I'm hitting on, the socialize, the be prepared to be relentless, and the driving the mindset of change, you need obviously to have the exceptional support provided to the business. You need, whether it be a transactional support or strategic support, a meeting and an event, a real estate footprint, a real estate design, whatever it is, that's exceptional support has to be there. We are not subject matter experts at a broad nature. We are not jack of all trades. We are subject matter experts in a specific thing. That's how we've built the team. And I would challenge yourselves and ask yourselves, do you have folks that can play multiple positions on the field or a specific position? We are subject matter experts. We do not have jack of all trades, master of none specific. And I think that has really resonated with the different functions we're dealing with, because they're experts in that particular field. And then I think there is a big difference between real estate, travel, meetings and events, technology sourcing, talent procurement, in how one goes about providing that exceptional support. What are the different things that one should be bringing forward, and how to work with stakeholders that those functions are. So the talent folks have a different mindset than finance folks, have a different mindset than engineering, or have a different mindset than sales or business development have. And how do you work with those and provide that exceptional support? I think that's critical as well. And then there's, I've said it a number of times, data, and how you use that data, whether it be looking at your supplier base and stratifying that supplier base and putting a definition to, well, these suppliers we're going to call enterprise strategic, and these suppliers we're going to call, in our world, member firm strategic, and these suppliers we're going to call operational, and stratifying those suppliers and making sure that you have a lens, a measurement, a criteria, a mindset on how you will interact with those different suppliers. That is data. And the availability of the data to have that discussion with your stakeholders, with the business sponsors you're trying to work with, is really important. Take an invoice. An invoice comes in, and the invoice hasn't run through a requisition or purchase order process. We're all confronted with that challenge. We call that, rogue or out of policy, whatever it might be. Well, that invoice comes in. Now, that invoice, in some cases, may not have a supplier associated with it. You got to get that supplier added so that invoice can be paid, because we all have made that financial commitment to that supplier, and that's why the invoice is there. The good or service has been provided. Well, that data that's available to that shows how many invoices came in by function, and then therefore how many suppliers needed to be added if that invoice came in without a supplier existing, is data that allows you to have the more meaningful, specific, under the ground, not 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, but under the ground conversation with the business leaders and the function heads, and say, this is lack of control on your part that these invoices are coming in without suppliers being in the system, or quite frankly, an invoice coming in, let's say there was a supplier in the system, the invoice coming in and you have no notification of it. You have no requisition, no purchase order. Not all of us are perfect, like I said, with having the requisitions and the purchase orders. So that is another example of data. It's very tactical, no doubt about it, but it's important if you take that data and lift it to having a strategic discussion. Another data point, or another valid item to be focused on, is the value, the quantitative value and brand value. These items are in our control. We run transactions, we have sourcing events, we renegotiate a lease, we renegotiate an air or hotel contract, we work with suppliers, and we know what the cost avoidance or the cost savings is. We should be able to track that. We should be able to report on that. We should be able to bring that forward in a very detailed way. Additionally, brand value. Brand value at EY is a different set of criteria, but we have the ability to capture all of that and bring that forward. And I think when you look at the combination of those value items, the quantitative value or the brand value, and you think about the availability of data and the transparency of data, you continue to work with the sponsors and explain to them these are the kind of things you're delivering. Once again, you ground it back to not just a transactional entity, but rather a function that's seen as strategic and that the board should be paying attention to. So hopefully those comments are helpful to you. And Scott, let me turn it back to you.
Thanks, Larry. I'm sure they're definitely useful for our audience. We're full of supply chain and procurement professionals here at the event, as you know, and it was useful for me as well. I've been learning a lot just by sitting here and listening to you. I particularly liked your phrase, prepared to be relentless. I like that when it comes to data. And you mentioned there data analytics. So why don't you tell us where you've taken it and where do you actually see it going in continuing to elevate supply chain services?
Sure. I think what I tried to say, hopefully clearly, is that I think there's a reactive usage of data and then there's a proactive usage of data. The reactive piece of data, we need to continue to look at things that we can get data and bring it forward and have discussions on. The proactive data is a little bit more, where are these trends going in this particular function? What are we seeing differently? Are they using suppliers in a different way? Are they do they have spend patterns that are different? Are they not as focused on larger suppliers, only smaller suppliers, stratifying in that way, trying to be a bit more predictive, a bit more looking around the corner for the function. I clearly see, Scott, the ability with the technologies that we're investing in now to pull data from different sources. So some from non-procurement systems or supply chain services systems, but rather the function systems. So taking a bot and reading some data from a system in talent, combining it with our data and seeing what we can make out of that to be more predictive to help the business function, whether that be, we know that the recruiting is taking place. We know that these number of people are being recruited every quarter. We know that we have certain limitations with our recruiting firms. Here are some other options that we might be able to look at. So being a little bit more predictive versus reactive, which is important to be reactive on the data as well. So I think it's going to go down that path much more, Scott. We're going to start to see more technology allowing us to be more predictive with the data and getting into pieces of the organization and using data from those pieces of the organization to continue to add value.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Now, it's really interesting. And you mentioned talent there and also recruitment. So let's talk about the Great Resignation, because it's still, top of agenda, really. How is that impacting your ability to continue to add value, if it's affecting you at all?
Yeah, clearly it's hindering us and helping many of the companies that our people are leaving to go to, no doubt about that. I think one of the things that we've built this procurement supply chain services practice on is experienced people. Like I said earlier, we don't have jack of all trades, master of none. We have dedicated, deep subject matter experts. So we're losing, as you can imagine, a number of folks from the team with that skill set. So yes, it is impacting us. It is a challenge for us. Now, some of the unconventional ways that we are looking to either recruit or retain are the things that you might expect, and everybody speaking with us today would feel the same way, which is diversity, which is inclusiveness, which is flexibility. So we're all, we're bringing that forward and we're continuing to stress that. But the one thing, Scott, that's really interesting is when I speak about brand value, that's resonating a lot with people wanting to know more about EY and maybe EY becoming an employer for them. When we talk about brand value, it opens up a number of possibilities for people to do things differently, and they're intrigued by that. Another quote unquote unconventional we think is for the future is the intern program. Not only getting people at university, but after university, getting some interns in and having them. We're working right now in the UK, and we will be, I think, on public television at some point coming up in the next month or so, where we've had some interns come in. We really believe that word of mouth with those folks who then take positions someplace else, but then have other students and friends of theirs that are at university, growing that, perception, growing that value that we can deliver, et cetera, in their minds, and just spreading their network is important. So we're trying to do that as well. That doesn't really solve the problem of the experienced person you lose, but it is another way to get more people interested in procurement and looking at EY as a place that they could come to.
Okay, and that's one way that you're looking to what's the word here I'm looking for? Expand the brand value or showcase the brand value?
Brand value is an interesting topic. Quantitative value, pretty straightforward. Cost savings, cost avoidance, et cetera. Brand value for us is working on a transaction and driving value that might be around the experience of our people coming into an office, or it might be working through a health program where we're going to reduce how much money the individual has to pay out of their pocket, not just reducing money that EY would pay out of their, its own pocket. So brand value, what we've done is we've compartmentalized a number of brand value items to be linked in with our next wave strategy. And for example, social, is part of our next wave strategy. We would look at things around diversity, inclusiveness, sustainability. So you might work with a supplier, you might negotiate with a supplier, and in this time of inflation and this time of geopolitical and this time of supply chain issues, you might not avoid costs, you might break even, you might not save any money. But if we can drive things that enhance our people, our professionals in the organization, they get something different from a solution or different from a supplier. Or if you have an office-based supplier and we have a better technology for them to reserve an office space when they come and visit the office, through their enhancements and their innovation, we attribute that to improving our brand value position. So that's resonating with a lot of people because it's opening up doors to think differently and working through these transactions. So it's not just driving savings and avoidance, it's bringing the brand value to the table. So that's really how I would summarize that, Scott.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, before we wrap things up, there's just a couple of points I want to mention. Now, in the introduction, I mentioned just some of the high-profile awards that you've won, and obviously, fingers crossed for the latest one that you might get in a few weeks' time. But I think you've just won another award, haven't you? Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the ProcureCon award that was announced, and it's out there on LinkedIn. Feel free to take a look at it. I think what's important about that award is driving innovation through the seat of the CPO or the supply chain services officer, and how one brings innovation to the function, not how you help finance or talent or sales, how you help them innovate, but how you innovate internally yourself, whether it be through data or analytics or working more collectively with the accounts payable, with the supplier management, with the procurement function, using technologies to drive that. That was really what the CPO Innovation Award was from the ProcureCon, which I think we're all very proud of, and I was humbled to receive that. But I think it's just a reflection, Scott, on continuing to reinvent, continuing to be self-aware on what your limitations are and where you can continue to improve, whether it be through technology, whether it be through process changes, or whether it be through organizational changes. We are constantly looking at organizational changes to go on top of the process and the technology changes that we make. So I think that is where the innovation, the CPO innovation resonated with ProcureCon.
Okay, I mean, that sounds like it should make good material for a book. But Larry, I think you've got a book out at the moment, haven't you?
There is a book. It's a lot of what we're talking about here today. Like I said earlier, Scott, I'm really passionate about the board level visibility of procurement and supply chain services, and the book is part of a Mission Matters. Few authors have come together under Mission Matters. They do a tremendous job of bringing thinking and different thinking to the table. So I was pleased to be affiliated with that. The book has come out, and then another iteration of that book will be coming out over the next 6 weeks or so. But it's really, Scott, more than anything, it's not really about the personal brand, quite frankly. It's about the brand of EY. EY has allowed me to foster this passion for procurement and supply chain services. So clearly EY is supportive of that. The Supply Chain Services Organization is supportive of that. And quite frankly, the industry, right? We need to work together to continue to elevate the procurement and supply chain services brand within the organization.
Absolutely, and look, and that's why everyone is here today at the conference is to elevate themselves, to learn from executives like you, to share insights and pick up best practice in these difficult and uncertain times as well. Look, Larry, I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights. I will just say, if anybody wants to ask any questions directly to Larry, you can do so via the event app. So if you download that, if you download Brella, you can network and ask questions directly to all of our speakers and all of our attendees as well. I'm sure Larry would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Absolutely, thumbs up from Larry there. So for now though, Larry, thanks for your insights today. Pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much.
Okay, stay tuned everyone. We'll be right back for the next session in just a few minutes.